Deborah, good morning, because it's good morning where you are, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Good morning. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Actually, I just came out of the garden. I was doing a little bit of sunbathing because I'm a sun lover, and we're recording this in June 7th, 2017. That's for those people who are listening in the future. And we have had a bit of a rough spring. So every patch of sun that I can find, you can find me in that bit of sun there. So, but I reckon you are from a sunny place somehow, because if you say good morning, I am saying good evening. It is 5:33 here, recording time. So tell us a little bit about yourself. We don't know who you are, and where do you come from? Where are you now? And what is your so-called cultural frame of reference? You have about 10 minutes for this whole load of questions.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I am coming to you from San Jose, California, which is just south of San Francisco. It's a beautiful, lovely, sunny day here, and we are enjoying the great weather as always.
As always.
We're so happy to be out of drought conditions. So I am originally from Ohio. I moved out here quite a few years ago, and began my education in the Sacramento area. After attending San Jose State, I remained on in San Jose, and I started my business. I started wedding consulting actually in 1995. Although the company is actually started in 1990. The name of the company is the Association of Certified Professional Wedding Consultants.
That's a mouthful.
Yes, it is. And I have trouble saying it sometimes, too. That's why we normally just say ACPWC.
Right.
We train and certify wedding and event planners.
Okay.
And so our program is a home study program, or we also have personalized courses that people can come and learn how to be wedding and event planners. A lot of people say, "Oh, I didn't know there was a school for that."
Exactly.
So we're here to kind of help people to understand that there is a school for that, and it is important to get training for whatever job career you want to pursue. Wedding planning and event planning has really just become really on the scene for the, let's say, quote, average Joe over the past 10, 15 years. It used to be that only the rich and famous, so to speak, were familiar with or used those types of services. So I'm happy to say that that market is greatly opened, and there's a great need because there's always someone getting married. And what people fail to realize is that your wedding is probably the largest expense that you will incur outside of maybe your home and your car for most people.
Yes.
It's a large chunk of change for a one day event, so to speak.
Much, yes.
The market has just completely grown, and within that market, there's a lot of diversity. We started our company. The company actually started in 1990, and I actually purchased it from the founder, whose name was Ann Nola.
Okay.
And when she decided that she wanted to retire, I purchased the company from her. Now, Ann started off as a bridal show producer, and so through the bridal show, she could see that there was so much. There were no standards. There was no level of excellency. There was very little level of excellency, and people were doing things in so many different manners that she thought it would be important to take some time, set up a program that could help people to understand really the process and really the steps that are taken when you are actually getting married, because it isn't as easy as just run down to the courthouse. Now it really has become, it's gone into production mode, so to speak. So she set up the training program, and from then, it's been running from then on. Along with the training program, we have a membership association. Now the basis for that is that, okay, so now we've trained you. what's next. We want to be there to support you as you're starting your business. We want to be there to mentor you, to give you, additional information. You need to have someone to call if you have a question, something comes up and you don't know how to handle the situation, or you're just not sure. I have consultants calling me quite a bit and saying, okay, can you talk me off the ledge, because this is what I'm doing and I'm not sure if this is the right thing or not. And more times than not, they did the right thing. They just it's just, there's just an uncertainty, because when you're dealing with people, there's always an uncertainty.
Yeah, they needed the confirmation from your side.
Right. And so living in California, we really have a large, diverse, diversity of cultures, particularly in this area. And it's wonderful.
Because you're close to Silicon Valley. For those of you who are geographically impaired, for instance, you're under San Francisco, which is that Silicon Valley area, right?
Yes, I live in Silicon Valley. Absolutely.
You do, but you do something totally non-technical.
True. And what's funny is, because I do have a technical background, I was in purchasing for years, and people are like, how? And I purchased things, printed boards, and parts and that kind of thing. And people are like, how can you do that? And I'm like, that paid the bills, and but this feeds my soul. It feeds my spirit. It made me happy. So that's why I wound up in wedding consulting. And I've always been a planner at heart. Even when I was a child, I would plan tea parties and I would either plan tea parties or play teacher. So for me to grow up and be a person who teaches you how to plan parties, it was my destiny. It's pretty simple as that. So
that's nicely phrased as well. It pays the bill, but this one feeds my soul. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to borrow that at times from you, if I may.
Feel free.
All right, thank you. So it's I prompted you for this question that I'm about to ask you just before we actually hit record here, and I'm just curious because I have been married as well. I've been married twice. I'm a serial D4C. That's what how I tend to call myself. Are you married yourself? And if so, if I can ask that question, of course, and if so, who organized your wedding?
Okay, so yes, I am married. I have been married it'll be 23 years. Actually, our anniversary is on the 25th of June.
June. All right, congratulations.
Yes, and we actually went to Lake Tahoe and got married up there. And it was because, well, first of all, let me just say that I was not a planner, an official planner. I was not trained. I had not taken the course when I got married. Okay. In my defense. So we did a smaller family, close friend wedding up in Tahoe, which I did coordinate myself, and it was great, and everything went well. It's just that we wanted a smaller, closer group, and we had a lot of, there was a lot of things going on at that time, so we just wanted to do, something easier. I, like you, had been married before and did the huge wedding thing, and I just wasn't going to do that again.
Okay.
I think that we get sometimes so much involved in the actual wedding that we forget about really the meaning of it, and the marriage. You forget about the marriage. Everybody loves weddings, but people don't stop and take enough time to think about marriage. But I think what happens is, in a cultural arena, that's something that comes up a little bit more and is much more important to address, for the simple fact that now you are blending two cultures.
Right.
And you have to be aware of that. You have to be mindful and respectful. And when you're dealing with such a wonderful occasion, a special occasion as a wedding, it's important that grandma and grandpa are not offended. And sometimes we get moving so fast and we forget to stop and be respectful of our elders and of our culture.
Okay, all right, makes good sense as well. I've been married to an Indian, and that was special as well in terms of doing a wedding, because that was spread out over a couple of days,
Right.
as Indians tend to do that. And where I'm being from the Netherlands, I'm used to, like, we call this a wedding day, so it's actually already encapsulated in the language because it's a wedding day, while Indians call this a wedding, and it's not a day because it takes a couple of days.
Right. It's
Already
a
there.
3 or 4 day event.
Exactly, it's much more of an event. Yes. Now you mentioned in the beginning that this is booming, or at least the business is growing. That's what you said. And has this anything to do with because that the first thing that came to mind was The Wedding Planner, the movie. Was that a big
Yes.
push? Was that a help?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I have to say, I have seen that movie. I will honestly admit that I've seen that movie about 150 times.
Is it any good?
It's a great movie.
I mean, any
and,
good in
you know,
terms from your perspective, that is, right? Your professional perspective.
parts of it are not realistic. However, the concept of hiring a professional to put everything together for your big day is very much on point. If you notice in the movie, she is coordinating all of the aspects. You know, you're deciding upon that. She's with the groom. They're deciding upon the flowers. They're looking at the different locations that would fit for their particular scenario. They are, there's just this litany of services and duties that need to be, and responsibilities that need to be handled. And that's what the planners do. People often think that they can do it themselves, and then they get down to the last few days and they realize, oh my gosh, I forgot to do this or I forgot to do that. I can't do everything on my own. Yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes it's too late. Yes. If you ask couples if there was one thing that they would have changed about their wedding day, about 80% of them or more would say, I wish we'd have hired a planner.
Yeah.
You get to that point where they're stressed out, they're exhausted.
Oh yeah.
They are, they're snapping at the family and everybody else because they're just so overwrought. Had they just hired a planner, they wouldn't have that issue.
I very much agree with you, because the thing that, I mean, of course, the wedding itself, that's stuck with me. But you're being, I wonder if I translate this. You're being lived. I mean, you're not living it. Other people are living your day in a way, because it goes by so fast, and things, you don't have the time to enjoy. What's really happening. It's like,
right, and that's what we do. We take the we take the stress.
Yeah.
We take the role of the director for that day, so that you're not worried about who's going to tell me, what do I need to do? I don't want to have a bunch of people running up to me asking me questions. We make sure that things run on time. Our job is to make sure, to help you stay on budget, to manage the day for you so that you can spend that time with your family. Yes. And again, we encourage, we tell people don't, they say, oh, my mom's going to do this, my mom's going to do that. Your mom should be a guest at your wedding. Right. Your family, your entire family should be a guest at your wedding. They should not be running around chasing a caterer, tracking down a photographer, or all of those duties that the planner has already, that's what you're paying her for, to take care of those details for you. Yeah. Let your parents, enjoy the day just like you're enjoying the day.
All right, it sounds good. It's the you mentioned as well, because of the growth of your business and the area that you're in, the San Jose, the South Bay of San Francisco, that is, and that which is populated by many different cultures. And you also said that having a wedding planner or an event planner is is something that more and more people are doing, and it's not only the big budgets or the celebrities. So what kind of different people with different background, what kind of demands have people? And of course, I'm interested in the outrageous ones as well. Not only, but also a few.
Well, it's funny because there is such a mix of cultures here. You have great combinations of everything. I think one of the most interesting ones personally I had was a Hispanic family and a Vietnamese family. And so the Spanish,
Together?
you know, yes.
Oh, okay.
So half of the guests were speaking Spanish, half of the guests were speaking Vietnamese. I don't speak either. So I basically could communicate with the bride and groom and the best man and the maid of honor, and you know, maybe a couple of the others in the bridal party. But the communication is difficult when you're talking about different languages. But surprisingly, when you're talking about an occasion that is so special, you can tell that everybody's on the same page. You can tell that everybody is happy, that everybody is supporting the marriage, that everybody is there to show their love and to enjoy themselves and to celebrate with the bride and groom. And you don't have to have words to do that.
Right.
That's shown through the emotion. It's shown through a smile. It's shown through a hug, you know. And so sometimes, you know, we think that it's going to be harder than it is. Yeah, there's some things that have to be communicated. We get that. But some things can be communicated non-verbally. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. I've also had a wedding where the guests were from Germany. So everything was spoken and then translated, right? So the officiant would say it in English, and then the interpreter would say it in German.
Okay.
And so that was kind of fun. That was really kind of fun, you know. And then what was very lovely is because you had the German traditions that come into play, and the different ethnic groups have their different traditions, and it makes a very interesting ceremony, and it makes a very interesting reception. And I try to encourage, I encourage that diversity. You know, what are you going to do that can make your wedding a signature wedding, something different than what everybody else is doing? So if you can bring a cultural element to that, it makes it very special. Even in the rehearsal. So when you have your rehearsal dinner, maybe you want to use your cultural foods in your rehearsal dinner if you don't want to do it on wedding day. Maybe you can implement some cultural elements into your centerpieces, or into, you know, some themes or something that are going to be introduced. Do it through music. Do it through food. Do it, you know, the different spices and the different just the different things that people do. Dancing. People are bringing in different cultural dancing during the cocktail hour. You know, how fun is that? Bring in some entertainment, something that shows my background, where I'm from, what we believe. You know, when you're blending two cultures, it can sometimes be, you know, it's a challenge. It's not just, you know, it's not just the two people and two people are coming together. You've got two families coming together.
Yeah, very much. Yes. And they have to, at least at that evening, you know, enjoy themselves and hopefully lay the foundation in order for them to move on together as well as a
absolutely
as
and
a
when
group,
you
if you want.
Yeah, and when you think about it, it used to be pretty much, you know, you were, if you try to blend two religions, it was problematic.
Yes.
Now you're blending not just the religion, but the whole cultural background.
Yeah.
And it can be a challenge, but the secret is to be respectful of the other religion. Learn as much about it as you can, even not just for the bride and groom, but particularly for the planner, because she needs to make sure that everything is in line and appropriate. And also the family, it's nice that the family can have an understanding of the other culture, because if you're going to do something that's unusual, you know, you might want to let them know, okay, this is what's going to happen. There's going to be this special cultural dance. You know, you want to pay particular attention to this part because it's going to be very interesting. So, and, you know, it's just nice. You know, moms have this, you know, typically the mother of the bride and mother of the groom have this bond going. And so when you've got a different culture, you know, there needs to be an understanding there.
Yes, that makes true. I think it makes good sense. And how do you, as Deborah Moody, how do you keep up with understanding those different cultures? I mean, is that something that you take a book, or do you just go with the flow, or are there moments where you frown, like, is that really what you want to do? I think that, you know, when you sit down with your couples to do a consultation,
that's something that you need to address, head on. Here's the thing: young people, like everyone else, people understand their culture. They have a culture. Are you going to go traditional, or are you going to go, what's in style?
Yes.
And so once you determine if we're going the traditional cultural way, or if we're going the what is the norm for right now, or is it a blended, is it going to be a blended thing? So that's why I say if you want to be traditional for your wedding, but you also want to bring in the cultural elements, you can do those in different areas, and that way everybody kind of gets their piece of the pie, so to speak. Everybody has a piece of it that they understand. If you bring in part of the bride's culture and you bring in part of the groom's culture, and you blend them in the proper manner, it makes for just a delightful, wonderful signature event that nobody can duplicate, because it's about you and your culture.
Yes. Makes good sense.
Yes.
Are there any really outrageous things that you've seen or come across also with your ACPWC?
Outrageous.
Or the one that actually sticks out, that's the one that comes to mind when I ask this question.
We come across Bridezillas. I think that's probably where we're going with this. Bridezillas, and that's the bride who, now there's Groomzillas as well, but that's the bride who is so strung out and so stressed out that she is basically just lashing out at everybody and everything around her.
God. That's horrible for the person itself as well.
It can be a horrible experience. It's horrible for the poor. Typically, it's horrible for the poor groom, and most people are like, oh, that poor groom, he's gonna, he's in for it. It's horrible for the vendors, because nobody wants to, the wedding professionals they don't enjoy working with a person like that.
Of course not.
I always advise my consultants, when they're sitting down and they're having a consultation. We offer a free consultation when we sit down with our clients, right? So I say to them, if you sit down to have a consultation with your couple, and you pick up on a vibe of, a strange vibe, something that doesn't sit well in your spirit, something that just isn't quite right, it's better to say at that point, I think that I'm not the right fit for you, and let them go, let them find a different planner. Because this is a person, you're going to be working with them for probably a year, and you're going to be dreading it every time you have to meet with them if you're not in sync, if you're not on the same page.
Yep.
And oftentimes when the bride is at a very high stressed out level, and you're sitting at a free consultation, what level is she going to be at when it's actual wedding day?
Absolutely.
It's going to be that stress on steroids, right? Yeah. So I advise them to, if that's the case, let her go now, and save yourself the stress and the aggravation, because what will happen is, no matter how right you do everything, you can have everything planned out, but there's always something that there's a potential for something to go wrong. It can be a little something, but that bride is going to throw it out of proportion, because she's already at the top of the stress level. Yep. And that could in turn, potentially ruin your reputation and your business, because if she goes off in front of her guests, you could have potentially had 10 other weddings sitting in that audience, right?
Absolutely.
And now she goes off, and it's always the planner's fault, whether it is or it isn't. It always is perceived that it's the planner's fault.
Yeah.
And so, I advise them, let her go. I've had 3 instances where I have suggested, when the consultant called me and said, this bride is this or that or the other, I'm like, okay, you know what? You need to tell her that you're not the planner for her, right, that this is not a good fit, and let her go find someone else, because if you don't, it's going to be a problem. And I had 3 instances where this happened, and they all wound up in lawsuits.
Yeah. Oh God, that's even worse. That's horrible. Yeah, true. We talked somewhat about Hispanic versus Vietnamese, Germanic weddings, if you want. How about cross U.S.? Are there differences in how people, say, left, right, north, and south? How people within the United States, or say, compare Canada with that as well? Are there differences there?
Yes, absolutely. So the highest dollar weddings are New York,
Okay.
Chicago, LA, and so Northern California, Southern California are like the highest. Those are probably the four highest areas. And you have this perception, I think, particularly on the East Coast, it's very important that you really make a showing, make a statement.
Right.
This is our wedding. It's not really, it sometimes evolves that it's not really so much about the bride and groom, but more about, sometimes it evolves into business transactions.
Right.
It takes on a whole new level. And so what we're finding now is that people are getting away from that, particularly in California. We have kind of a different, Northern California and Southern California have very different mentalities.
Yes.
We out here, we're more, the Northern Californians are more into a natural kind of people element, and what's going to make me happy, what's going to be fun for my guests, creating a nice experience, where other areas are more into show. And so you have this different dynamic going on. Same with in the South, southern areas, it's more about the hospitality and making sure that the guests are happy and they're enjoying themselves and that as opposed to having a big production.
Right, which would be more, like you said, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, or San Francisco. Less San Francisco than Los Angeles like that.
Right. And culturally, like we discussed, the South Asian brides are, it's several days of events. It's not just the wedding day. It's not just rehearsal the night before and the wedding day. There's days of events that come with that, and it's wonderful. It's very fun. It's, if you're not in that culture and you get to go and experience that, it's a wonderful thing. And I think that's why Californians embrace the different cultures so much, because we enjoy going and learning and seeing the different cultures. We enjoy the music and the food and all the different elements that make things different.
Right.
And we can get along with that. We're respectful of that. We embrace that. We think it's a wonderful thing. We don't, you're not trying to alienate people and you make them feel like they're lesser than. You're embracing that and bringing that culture together just enriches you as an individual.
I can imagine. I agree with that as well. And when I do my workshops, I ask people, what the least culturally sensitive people are on the world. Most people pick out the Americans, and I don't find that true at all. There's not a cultural insensitivity in the United States. You're just not as exposed as, say, Europeans, for instance, to different languages, different currencies, different news items, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think one of the differences, I would say there's an ignorance.
Yes.
And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in the sense of unknowing.
Lack of exposure, really, yeah.
Exposure, we don't know. And it could be partly because we're so, in Europe, the countries are close together. Here, we're kind of isolated. We only have Canada and we only have Mexico.
Yes.
So we don't have, we're not exposed to, our borders aren't linked to, 5 or 6 countries where there's an easy way to interact, right?
True. Oh, yeah.
So you don't have that exposure. And so you are somewhat isolated. And if you're a person who doesn't travel, which I think is just, I think if you can travel, it just really opens up a whole new world for you. But if you're a person who doesn't travel, it's hard for you to get an understanding and an appreciation for what you really have here.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we are a little bit, we kind of have that perception that we're better than. And it's not a matter of better than. We're different. Everybody is different, and if you can respect those differences, learn about the different cultures and embrace them, it makes for just a much different world view on things.
I wish everybody had that same outlook when it comes to working internationally and working and looking at different cultures. This actually, Deborah, is a good segue into the two final questions that I have for you, which is the one I prompted you before actually we hit record. Is, can you give us 3 tips to become more culturally competent from your perspective, professionally or personally?
Yes, I would say first thing is that when you're going to deal with a different culture, take the time to do some research.
Okay.
Understand what that culture, understand more about that culture, so that when you enter in, you're entering from a perspective of, I don't know it all, but I do have an overall knowledge of what the culture is about. I would say, secondly, to be open to new experiences. Different cultures provide you with such a richness of, they can just enrich your life in such a powerful way. So you need to be open to explore those different opportunities. And then I would say, again, I'll repeat, on a personal level, if you are able to travel, to go to different places and see, different parts of the world, even if you just travel within your country,
right.
There's a whole lot of different levels and different people and different nationalities right in your own backyard. Take the time to get to know some of those people and get to be friends with them. Know their culture. Let them explain things to you. Do look up some history when you go into a different country. Look up the history. Look up their customs.
Right.
What do we do? You don't want to go someplace and be disrespectful. I hate that term, ugly American, but sometimes when we go places, we're not appropriate. So I think if you take the time to look up some of the cultures and have an understanding of what's going on, it would behoove you to do so.
Great. Sounds really good. Really good tips. I like the take the time to do some research as well and make friends. Make friends is a good thing. It could be one of those slogans. Today I'm going to make a new friend. And see who this person turns out to be in the end.
Right. For us, the wedding business is all about relationships.
Yes, I can imagine.
The relationships that you develop will make or break your business, truly. Yeah. You have to have relationships. If something happens in the end, you need to be able to work, have a relationship with another wedding professional who can come in and help, the cake fail. You need to have a relationship with that bakery that can come in and replace the cake or, replace the flowers or whatever the situation may be. That's all done through relationships.
Yeah, it's true. I've got the feeling that you're pretty good at that.
I try. It's important whether in business or personal. All of the relationships that you develop over the years they really enrich your life. And as you're getting older, you get to have more of appreciation for that.
Sure.
Because people, they're going to come and they're going to go. But the ones who are, your friends are the ones that are going to stick by you. So you develop those relationships and hope that they're lifelong, they're for the rest of your life.
Sure. Good. If people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way that they can do that?
They can, my email is dmoody@acpwc.com. The company is the Association of Certified Professional Wedding Consultants. The website is www.acpwc.com. And phone 408-227-2792. We train and certify wedding planners and event planners, and you can start a course at any time. There's no restrictions as far as start date or we give you 3 months to try and get through the program, but there's no restriction on when you start. We encourage people to go and to get training because credentials shows credibility.
True.
It shows that you believe in your craft and that you've taken time to go the extra mile.
Yes.
People ask me all the time, do you have to be certified? No, you don't have to be certified, but it definitely helps.
Yes, I can imagine. That makes good sense as well. All right. Well, thanks so much for giving us an insight into an aspect of culture that I just didn't know existed. But we cleared up that bit as well. Deborah Moody, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right. My pleasure. Take care then.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Take 1, shot 368. En cut.